All right, so 5 action points now, 5 activation points for Southern forces. I'm just going to do this from west to east and sort of consider the options and what needs to happen. I should zoom back here a little bit so that we can take in the sort of whole region. We've got stuff going on in western Missouri. You've got Fremont and Curtis coming in on Price in either direction, right? So Fremont, I believe, has got 5 troops with him. Yeah, 4. So he's got 4 strength points there. And Curtis should have 2. Okay. So what I'm most worried about is that they'll knock Price out of Springfield. I'd like him to stay there as long as possible. I mean, as the South, you want to be in the North as long as possible because it means you're not fighting for your own territory. So they're entrenched. He's got 3 SPs. So I'd really just prefer that the Union brought the fight to me in Springfield because odds are better if Price is defending himself in an entrenched position. And he's not in full supply, but he is in limited supply because he can trace 4 movement point path back to Fayetteville and in a roundabout way through Arkansas back to Little Rock. So the question is what to do about this 1 SP that's hanging out here next to Curtis. He isn't really a match for Curtis, mathematically speaking. I mean, he might knock him out, attack him, and get away without taking any damage, but it's very unlikely. He won't necessarily help the situation in Springfield. Price can only command 3, which I believe only matters in terms of offensive capability and movement. He's on defense there. But the real threat is that because there are 2 stacks of Union troops here, neither of which is really tenable for Price to move out of his entrenchment to attack, that one of them might go around, do a sort of end run around to Fayetteville, and then put Price out of supply. So let's say Curtis does this. Curtis would himself be out of supply, and then both stacks of troops would have to roll for attrition, and they might lose strength points. So why would Curtis do this? Because even as much as it hurt Curtis, it would probably hurt Price just as much or just about as much. And every little thing he can do to hurt Price up there in Springfield will just make it that much easier for Fremont, who has a larger force to begin with, to just pop in there and try to, push him out. Another thing Curtis might do is take the sort of end around the long way through Batesville and down in this gap through the woods down here to Little Rock. So he would have to set up a supply source as he went to keep himself in supply. That would be Athens, which could trace 1, 2, 3, 4 to Fremont. No, actually he would be out of supply if he did that, unless he also had a supply source in Pocahontas that could trace over to Athens. Yeah, so neither of those are really options. But the question really, 1, 2, 3, 4, it doesn't quite get there. The question really is what to do, what I want to do with this 1 SP, because if I don't move it, probably Curtis, or possibly Curtis, will just knock it out of the way, or he might just go around it and try to get to Fayetteville. So this all has to be taken into account with what's going on in southeast Missouri and the sort of on the Mississippi region here where the border meets Kentucky and Tennessee in the Boot Heel region. So Halleck is over here in Buffington, which you saw me move earlier. He's got a relatively large force. Johnston and Polk are here, but they don't have enough troops that Polk and Johnston's ratings will both count. This is just Johnston as far as the die roll modifiers are concerned. So they're unentrenched, sitting here along the Mississippi with some naval batteries. We don't really want to lose these naval batteries. They're expensive, they're hard to get. It's not easy if you lose them to replace them because it's by random event what sort of naval assets you get during naval reinforcement phases if you're the Southern forces. So these troops definitely can't assault Halleck. That's not really an option. So they need to set up some kind of defensive position. Now we could always just leave them there, but where Halleck is, we have this problem to where he may try to grab Gainesville. If Halleck grabs Gainesville, that would open up a possibility that Curtis could use Athens as a supply source and come down to Little Rock. And even though Little Rock's pretty far from Springfield, that would still be enough to put Price out of supply. So, what to do if you're the Southerner in this situation? Do we want to change our distribution of forces on this map? Do we want to leave it the same? What could the North really do without also putting itself in an awkward position that we might be able to exploit? I don't know. I'm going to think of a plan, and I'll get back to you on that. So I think I'm going to leave that 1 SP there across the White River, just because I think it's more likely that Curtis would want to move on Fayetteville. And if he did, this is going to force him to either attack across the river to get my SP, or he's going to have to go around Price and give Price 2 opportunities to intercept him as he moves west on the south side of Springfield. Another possibility is that Curtis moves up to grab some troops from Fremont to mass for an attack. If he does that, I guess I'll just be rolling the dice, and if I lose, I'll be going back to defend Fayetteville. But there's no real reason to give up that ground unless they make me, you know? So I think we're just going to sit there. And Halleck might conspire to make some difficulty for us by coming over and grabbing a potential supply depot on the way down to Little Rock. I do have this SP who's just wallowing down in this marsh down here. He's not particularly well placed down there. But if Halleck does move out of position, Johnston, if he has to, can cover Buffington and Greenville right up here, and that would put Halleck out of supply, which, because his stack is large enough, would almost certainly cause some attrition. And we're coming up on fall and winter, even though there's a few more action cycles, 3 more action cycles in this turn yet. So just about anything can happen. But I think at the moment I'm just going to stay reactive on this front. I'm definitely going to entrench Johnston. I'm thinking about entrenching that 1 SP over there too, which would, if Curtis made the move on Fayetteville, sort of guarantee that he would try to slip between us instead of attacking my 1 SP. I'm not really sure if I'd rather him be intercepted by Price or try to take on that 1 SP. But I'll make a decision here and let you know what I think. But definitely we're going to entrench Johnston. There's always a possibility Halleck will come down and try to smack him. And maybe that SP, maybe not. I'll have to look at the rest of the board and see what I need these activations for.
Okay, so now over to the east. Now on the Union phase of this, or the Union half of this phase, they really did a number in West Virginia. They knocked Stuart and his cavalry list right off the map. So they're threatening, if they have the next, during their next phase, to move into Staunton. Both Burnside and McDowell have the capacity to reach Staunton, both with the stack of 3 troops. So this would be a serious problem, because if they got into Staunton, you see, they could establish a supply source. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. They would have to establish a supply source either in Covington or Warm Springs before they would be in supply in Covington, but that wouldn't be too difficult for them to do. One of those stacks could be used to offset any threat that Longstreet might pose, and another one could run to Richmond, could run up to Fredericksburg, could mess up these supply lines for these troops in Northern Virginia. This would be a significant problem for the Southern player. So we need to get some troops into Staunton, and Longstreet is available and he can make it. Unfortunately, he's only got 2 SPs, and there's a combined force of 6 between the 2 of these stacks. Now, it's nice that they're separated into 2 stacks, because it's going to cost them an extra MP to try to get together to coordinate on an attack. Both stacks can't attack simultaneously, as it were. It would be great if we could set Longstreet up in a defensive position here in Warm Springs, because that would mean that either of these stacks trying to get across the mountains would either have to attack across the mountains, which would be essentially the die roll modifier of a free fortification for Longstreet. But there's also the possibility that, say he sets up in Warm Springs, that Burnside might sneak past him and get into Staunton, or that he might have to end up battling him between Warm Springs and Staunton, and he wouldn't get a defensive bonus from any fortifications in Warm Springs, or from the fact that Burnside crossed a mountain hex side. So really the safe thing to do is to put Longstreet up in Staunton. So we can do that by going 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so Longstreet's there, but he's only there with 2. That's our second of 5 activations. So we've got 3 more activations to try to get him some relief. Well, we definitely want to fortify him, and we want to pull some troops from a couple other places. So Beauregard has a stack of 6 SPs, And if you look at the die roll modifiers online or on the Vassal module, you'll note that 5 and 6 SPs both defend at the same level. They use the same die roll, it's the same column. So in the long term it might hurt Beauregard, but in the short term, if McClellan were to come across and try to attack, it wouldn't be a significant handicapping of that force to drop it down to 5. So we'll steal one from Beauregard. We can use rail movement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. By rail movement, you can go up to 10 in an unbroken path. So then we're going to bump Longstreet up to 3. It's only 1 on the backside. So here's Longstreet's upgrade. Okay, so that's 2 activation points. We'll use a 3rd activation point to fortify these units. So we've got 2 more activations left. What are we going to do with those? Well, with one of them, I'm going to take these troops out of New Bern. I placed these in the reinforcement phase of the last end of turn cycle on top of this North Carolina militia with the idea of setting them up in Fort Macon. But they're more specifically, or Hatteras Inlet, but you see there's troops there already, so that's a moot point. So they can do a little more good if we move them north and try to help plug any possible holes that might open up in our defensive perimeter up here in Northern Virginia. So this will be the 2nd SP we're moving by rail movement, so the last SP we can use rail movement with. So we'll move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 that can get him to Richmond. Okay, so that's 1 in Missouri that we moved, 2 for Longstreet, 3 for Longstreet support, 4 to reinforce Longstreet, and setting up this SP from South Carolina up into Richmond was 5. So that's the end of the southern turn. We're going to have to see what happens, whether the Southerners maintain the initiative or whether they hand it back over to the Union troops.